A public school district in Virginia nearly banned a queer student's artwork because it offended some Christians. Now, the piece was made by Abby Driscoll. It is titled, "But Not Enough to Save You." Here it is. Now, the piece was meant to be one of several student works of art shown in Fort Defiance's high school's spring show, which had the theme of trauma. Now, she explains that her piece is about being LGBTQ+ and dealing with religious trauma as a result of being a member of that community. Now, Driscoll told Staunton Virginia News Leader Sunday that piece in particular was about religious trauma and trauma faced from not being accepted in a quote-unquote loving community. I wanted to really portray that. I know the message is a little strong and in your face, but the kind of shock factor is what I wanted to get out of it. This piece is representative of the idea that growing up queer meant you couldn't be saved by God. Its description reads, "I grew up in a religious background that influenced the project. The idea of the glowing red cross is to represent evil in the eyes of God, and the bleeding rainbow represents devotion versus identity." So, look, I think her perspective is incredibly important. Now, I'm not a religious person, you know that, so maybe it's easy for me to come down on her side because I don't have those deeply held religious beliefs, but at the same time, isn't part of your religious beliefs to love everyone, regardless of who they are? To even to love your enemy? So I don't understand why there are a subset of Christians, religious people, that despise members of the LGBTQ community when aren't you supposed to be preaching love and tolerance? Just saying. So now, the question though is it provocative? Is it offensive? I don't think so. I'm again, my perspective is I'm not offended by it, but again, I'm not a religious person, so I guess I wouldn't quite understand what's to be offended about. But even I don't even think it's a provocative, really. I just think that, like, hey, it is a powerful message that is aimed at saying, look at what we go through as members of the LGBTQ community when it comes to faith. So now, according to LGBTQ Nation, Driscoll grew up religious in the Deep Red in rural Augusta County and had experienced this religious trauma as well as homophobia from her community. In this county, it's very hard, Driscoll said. There's a lot of discrimination and backlash, a lot of non-accepting people. So I'm guessing that people are offended because this piece happens to point that out. At least 2 school board members were critical of her work. Augusta County School Board member Tim Simmons said, "I personally find it offensive." Well, what's offensive about it? He added that he did care about the students' free speech, but wanted to create a culture of respect within our schools. Oh, but wait a minute. If you're not respecting her identity, then you're not respecting her, okay? And so, I mean, you say it's disrespectful to her faith, but you can be a person of faith and still be and still be gay, obviously. You can be a religious person, you can be gay and be a religious person. What's offensive is this school board member saying, no, you can't. And that's exactly what the piece is trying to convey. There are religious people telling you that you can't be religious if you happen to have this sexual orientation or happen to have a different gender identity. So that said, the board has so far voted to keep up the work, and that's good. And not only that, but the principal actively stood up for her, which I think is awesome. I love it. Now, at the same time, certain board members are looking to tweak the district's policy on approving artwork, which could mean that other pieces that are trying to convey a particular message will be censored. Dawn Driscoll, Abby's mother, said, "It opens a big can of worms. When you start tweaking freedom of expression, then you call into question whose viewpoint you're allowed to express." I think that's a great point. She added, "I guess a lot of the blowback or backlash against this piece kind of proves the message." Indeed it does. Now, look, the majority of bigotry that is against the LGBTQ community is cloaked in religion. Even though the vast majority of religious people are actually opposed to discriminating against the LGBTQ plus community. I mean, you'd be surprised to know that these numbers, but in 2/3 of all Christian people oppose using their religious beliefs to discriminate against gay and trans people. According to a UCLA Williams Institute survey, 84% of respondents opposed allowing medical professionals to withhold care from an LGBTQ person based on their religious beliefs. 74% of respondents opposed allowing employers to discriminate against LGBTQ people in hiring based on religious beliefs, and 71% of respondents opposed allowing businesses to deny service to LGBTQ people based on their religious beliefs. So when it comes to using religion to block LGBTQ people, I would say it's still too many people that exist out there who actually want to use their religion, their faith, to discriminate. But at least I can be heartened to know that the numbers are fairly small. Now, that said, she's gotten a lot of support online, and I think that's absolutely fantastic. And to those who may be offended by this, I hope that they're going to take a few minutes to actually think about why she made it in the first place. Put yourself into the shoes of the artist to try to understand her perspective. I'm hoping that if they do that, maybe, just maybe, hopefully, they'll learn something.